Hi, I'm Brad Terrace, Senior Product Manager for Duracon MicroDs at Cinch Connectivity Solutions. My goal today is to help you improve your soldering quality and reduce rework. We're going to take a look at some of our best practices for soldering wire to MicroD connectors. Soldering is the process of bringing two metal surfaces together, melting a filler material in between the two, and then that filler material solidifies to create a permanent joint. For our soldering process, we have a few different materials. Of course, we have the connector with the solder cups. The solder cups are designed for 26 gauge wire for MicroDs. We also have the solder itself. This is the material that creates the bond. And this is tin lead solder, 6337. We also have the wire that will be cut and stripped to create the bond to the connector. Another step or material that's often overlooked is solder wick. This is going to help remove the gold from the solder cup and create a less brittle bond. For our tools, we have a few different things. We have wire strippers, wire cutters if they're needed. I like to use a really good mount to hold the connector in place. And then of course we have the solder iron. Okay, so our first step is to make sure our connector is in a clamp, gives us free hands, and then our solder iron is heated up to 660 degrees, so it's ready to go. Next step is to remove the gold from the gold-plated solder cups. So it's an extra step, but the gold can be related to causing embrittlement. It's a very diluted gold, but we're going to dilute it even more. So we put some solder paste into the solder cup, fill it up, and then we remove that solder with a solder wick. And so this is going to dilute and absorb that gold plating. So now we see that our solder cup just has solder in it. Our next step is to prepare our wire. So our wire is cut to length, and now we're just going to strip the end. Make sure you got good sharp wire strippers. So the length of the stripped end should be the length of the solder cup. This one here looks a little bit long, so we could just trim it a little bit. The next step for preparing the wire is just getting a little bit of solder on that stripped end. So now it's going to work more like a solid piece of wire. The next step is now to solder the stripped end to the solder cup. So we're going to apply more solder to the solder cup and kind of fill that up. And we have our stripped end. And we're just going to reflow the solder. It takes a little bit longer because you're heating up both the cup and the wire. Okay, that looks pretty good. The tips I would have for someone doing this the first time, make sure that you whisk the stripped end of the wire and solder that. So it's going to work a lot more like one solid piece rather than trying to manage individual stripped ends. Also, practice. So before you get into a production unit, practice a few times on some dummy units or some spare units that you can toss. So two mistakes I often see is one, underfilling the solder cup. So you can actually cut the solder strip and use that length to fill the solder cup. You want to make sure that there's enough solder in there to totally immerse the stripped end. If there's any extra, you can also whisk it off. Another mistake is often just thinking that it's a difficult process. The solder cups are very close together, but it all comes together pretty well and a lot cleaner than you'd think. So I hope this video clarified some steps for you, provides you with some best practices that you could adopt as your own. Get out there practicing some soldering steps. If there's any feedback that you have for me, or if you want to find out more about our products, please visit our website and contact us directly.